Hello and welcome to the Game Pit. This is episode 176 and we're back to reviewing some games that we've been playing, Ronan.
It's a picking over the bone, Sean. We named it. Let's use the name. We are cracking in. We've got 8 reviews. Sean, I want 3 words on your general feelings about these games without giving anything away. Go.
Generally positive, but...
Oh. I'm going to go not as positive.
I had no doubt at all.
You're trying to give me a reputation of being a miserable git about games, and I am. Good. Yeah. Speaking of which, Brian Boru. Brian Boru, the High King of Ireland, is a 3 to 5 player game. Listed playtime 90 minutes from Pierre Sylvester, a veteran designer, and coming out from Osprey Games. There are 7 games with the word Brian in them on Board Game Geek, Sean.
There are? Okay, fair enough.
There are. I was pretty sure when I put in search, I'd type Brian, and it would be like, that's the only one that's going to come up. But
yeah, okay.
Particularly wanted to draw your attention to is one for you to look up. 1987's Brian Clough's Football Fortunes.
Brian, God, that takes me back to our PC games extravaganzas. Or Amiga, it wasn't even Amigas, but
oh well, pre-Amiga,
Spectrum, that'll be the one.
Right, you've got a job. You've got to find me Brian Clough's Football Fortunes. I'm not interested in anything else.
On it. You know what your birthday present is now, right?
Brian Clough. Well, no, it can't be. Nigel Clough. He played for Liverpool. That'll do. Okay, Brian Boru, High King of Ireland. It is a game in which there's going to be doing area majorities on an alleged medieval map of Ireland. I mean, they got the outline of the coast right, and they got the east coast right. But other than that, I've beaked about that enough. That's not where the towns were. In it, at the beginning of each round, and there are very few rounds in the game. It is player dependent how many rounds there are, but you're going to draft from a deck of cards. And there are 3 suits and some wild cards, and the cards are numbered 1 to 25, and they're littered without. There's only one 22, for example. There's only one number 18, but they're all the 3 different colours. Someone is going to pick the towns. The first player. It's whoever won the town last time, or if you win in a particular suit, and you're going to choose a colour of that town, and you have to play either the colour of that town or a wild card from your hand, and then the other players are going to follow. Now, unlike a lot of trick-taking games, they don't have to follow suit. However, only cards in that suit that match the colour of the town or wilds can win the town and put down their disc and claim and be valid for some majority scoring in that area. That's one of the ways in which you're going to score points. However, if you're not the only player who wins the town, you're going to get to do the secondary function of whatever card you've played. And those functions are in 3 different ways. Now, there's money in the game. Depending on what card you've used to win the town, you may get money or you may pay money, and the secondary function on all cards allows you to get some amount of money in. So that is a sort of an overlaying financial aspect, very small one that's going on throughout the game. It's always handy to have money, and you can also spend money on your turn to expand out of towns you already have, as long as you're going along the very fractured road system that is on the map. The 3 other functions you can do when you lose a hand is you can get points in marriage. Whoever's got the most points in marriage at the end of each round of draft taking tricks, and that is, like I say, is only like 3, 4, 5 cards you're actually going to play each turn. But whoever's got the most points in marriage is going to get a card, which is turned over at the beginning of each round, and it tells you what benefit you're going to get. And you're going to get a town, or you're going to get some points. They vary. There's a few of them. That's the yellow suit. The next suit is the red suit. Those are Vikings. There's a certain amount of Vikings going to attack Ireland this turn, and whatever card you've lost and you've played a red card, it tells you how many Vikings you can take. At the end of each round, if we've got rid of all the Vikings, then no one gets punished. If we haven't, the Vikings will take over one town from the player who has beaten the least Vikings in this turn, and then you're going to get benefits for having the most Vikings beaten, or for having the most after the person who had the most has had to discard all of theirs, which is the same thing that happens in marriage and is the same thing that happens with religion. So With religion, you're getting sort of religious points, and the one who's got the most religious points at the end of the round is going to get to put a monastery around one of their towns, which makes it twice as powerful for area scoring. Then they lose all their power. Then whoever's second is going to get a point and lose one of their power. So you can build up in marriage and Vikings and religion. But if you're the most, it's going to disappear. You'll have to start again. And if you're second most, you get something, but you're going to have to build towards winning to get the big bonus. At the end of each round, we check all of the areas off the board, because Ireland is split into like the Southern O'Neills, the Northern O'Neills, Connacht, Leinster, Munster, and each area's got a certain amount of towns that must be present in order for that area to be triggered, in order to be valid for scoring. And then whoever's got the majority of towns in there, given that monasteries double up your power, is going to claim that tile, although it can be taken off them. And at the end of the game, if you have that tile, it's going to be worth points. Now, Sean, I'm going to start with that area majority when it comes to sort of thinking about this game and how it all pulls together. And I've had trouble coalescing my thoughts on Brian Boru.
Yeah, you certainly did seem that way when we spoke about it. I haven't played, as you know, yet. And I've been looking at some comments, Ronan, and with regards to the area majority, is that the be-all and end-all? Because what a lot of people are saying is there's too many consolation prizes and it's too balanced. So also the negative comments are it's too balanced and there's too many consolation prizes, so it kind of gets stale quickly. Is that what you felt?
I think it depends how you're feeling about the game. Because when you look at it, it's about the board, it's about the towns, and you're thinking, right, this is going to be, I need to claim majorities. So surely the person with the most towns and the most area majority points must be the winner. But that's not true. People I've played with have won the game while having the fewest number of towns on the board, which feels counterintuitive. It's a very Pierce Sylvester thing to do. Make you think you're playing one game, but actually there's other ways in which you can win, and it's quite obscure how you're going to win. And in each game, the relative merit of each action is only shaped by what the other players are doing. So if I can grab a couple of provinces and get them really cheaply and score lots of points for them, that's great. If I get into a bit of a fight over a province, because there's so few hands in the game, if I've invested into it, it then becomes really, really swingy, whether I can take that or not. I find Pierce Sylvester games hard to judge because of this. They always leave me feeling like I'm being a bit thick and not getting what he wants me to get.
Yeah, that's probably true enough. The trick-taking side of it, Ronan, how important is that? Is it really dull? Is it just there to facilitate things, or was it like an integral part of the game that's quite interesting?
Well, trick-taking is what you're doing. It is the whole action of the game. So that draft leading into the trick-taking, that's where you feel like you have agency. But it's this inability, to me, players I've played with, to judge what's important and what's going to be important that puts a barrier between me and the game. In order to sort of plan to take particular towns, you first have to take control. So you're going to have to win a trick that's been started by someone else in a colour you have no control over. Now, let's say in a 4-player game, there's only 4 tricks per round. There's only 16 tricks in the whole game. I have to win one to get control, to then hope to win another one just to get the town that I'm after. And with so few cards in hand, it feels very difficult to put direction on what you're doing. It does feel a lot like something that you mentioned, that you're just sort of taking the consolation prize, trying not to be last in Vikings, and sort of seeing what will fall your way. Now, you have more agency than that, but I'm frustrated by what I can do and the choices that I have.
So unless you're pulling a shut up and sit down on me, Ronan, I think you're starting to lean in a certain direction as to what your sort of final thoughts are. So I'm just going to fire one more comment at you, and then we'll see what you do actually think of the game. Plays quick, but feels longer and meatier.
It does play relatively quick, but it depends what your expectations are. I'm going to kind of put another game into thinking here, a Pierce Sylvester game, that I think he's built on the ideas from King is Dead or König von Siam, which has these 3 colours and the majority scoring. It is a complete mind bender, but it's much quicker and simpler than this game. And the idea of losing, you sort of deliberately lose sometimes in that in order to waste other people's cubes. I think that this contains a lot of similar themes and sort of almost a narrative to it that's the same as The King is Dead, but is longer and is more obscure. And I'm not sure it gives me any more back than that game does. So as much as it says it plays quickly and you've been thinking a lot, I have been thinking a lot. I've been thinking, what's going on? And what am I supposed to be doing here? And you think, I'll play this once. Okay, that was really interesting. And that was the word that I used after my first play. That's really interesting. I really want to play that again so I can get my head around it. And I've played it several times. And I still want to get my head around it. But each play is becoming subsequently less interesting because there is a pattern there, but I still don't have enough agency. I'm still riding the wave a bit. I'm still taking the consolation prizes more often than not and then seeing where they take me. And if I've been unlucky to plan my consolation prizes and I'm one behind someone else because they've drafted and they've gone, I'm taking the same consolation prizes, but I've done it slightly better because I've got slightly better cards than you, then really I've almost wasted a quarter of the game. And it can feel very difficult, and it feels like I'm a rubber duck that's been swept off a container ship into the waves rather than a soaring dolphin.
I've always thought of you as a soaring dolphin, Ronan. Yeah.
You never have once in your life, but now you do. Brian Boru. Firstly, fantastic. Thank you for choosing the theme. Secondly, sort out your map. Thirdly, ultimately, I hoped for a lot. After 1, 2, 3 plays, I was excited. My excitement has faded. I was hoping I was going to get more out of the game. I didn't. It's ended up being unsatisfying. I'm often just waiting for things to drop where I want them to be. I'm waiting for someone to choose the colour of town that I want. And then you wait for someone to happenstance choose the actual town that I want to claim, because I have so little control as to what's actually going to be up for grabs here. And then, what do I jump in a province where I'm just not going to win? Because the provinces only trigger after a certain number of towns have been taken. All I'm doing, in effect, is sometimes just allowing someone else to score a province by being the one token other town in there. I'm just not having fun. It's too few actions, too few decisions, and I kind of feel like I'm watching the game happen for too much in Brian Boru. So my rating at the end of the day is going to be a 58.
Yeah, it's better than I thought it'd be. Just really quickly at the end, Ronan, are you getting any better at the game? Are you finding that you are improving your score or improving sort of how you play against people who've not played it before?
Yeah, I have improved my scoring. I don't think I've won yet, but myself and Rachel were within a point of each other in our last game, and we were ahead of the other players. But it's not satisfying. I don't feel like, oh yeah, I've got better, I've been smarter, I've done really well there. I just feel like almost I've learned to game the game, and it hasn't given me any pleasure in that.
Cool, right. Moving on to my first game, which I'm sure we're going to have an argument about, is Golem from Cranio Creations.
You are absolutely no good at not giving spoilers.
I'm an anti-spoiler. No, I am the spoiler. Sorry, I'm not an anti-spoiler at all. Flaminia Brassini, Virginio Gigli, and Simone Luciani. And they're the names that have brought us games like Grand Austria Hotel, Lorenzo El Magnifico, Zolkin, and Alma Mater. This game is based on the Golem of Prague legend or tale, where a rabbi created a golem to protect a town that was being wronged by the government or the local government. What you're doing in general is building golems to protect the streets of Prague, and you're going to do this over 4 rounds, and your actions are generated by marbles that are dropped into a tower, and it's in a very Grand Austria Hotel style. The colour of the marble is going to affect certain other game conditions, but the amount of marbles in the row that you take your marble from, that's going to generate the power of your action. So if you take a marble from a 4 stack, then you're going to have a 4 powered move for that. And what can you do as part of those actions? Well, you can work your golems. So once you've built your golems, you can work them, and they're on the streets of Prague, and they can lie down and do certain actions for you. You can build those golems that we talked about, and they go on, as I said, onto the streets themselves. You can get coins and gold. You can get knowledge and spells. And at last, again, like Grand Austria Hotel, there's a section that you can mirror any of the other actions so that you can never really be ruled out if something just doesn't fall in the right space for you. There was also a rabbi action that's going to give you more of the same types of things, but there's going to be slightly improved. And this is all garnered towards scoring in 3 separate areas. You've got your knowledge area, which you're trying to drive the books up, and you're getting cards into your tableau that are going to chain off each other, and they are books themselves. You are trying to turn over blue tiles on your player board. And it's really hard to describe this, and I'm sure we're going to touch on this later, because it's a very, very difficult thing to understand. But you're turning blue tiles, and there's menorahs on each of these tiles on your board. And the scoring at the end is largely going to be how many of the menorahs you've turned over. And in the knowledge track, it's how many columns of books to how many menorahs you've turned over. And there's another section of your player board in where you can score points at the end. And it's all generated by how many golems you've managed to build during the game. And you can also up the power of those golems and give them little powers as you go along. And again, every time you turn over, and it's depicted as a big golem, so you turn over the left arm and it's got a menorah on it, and it gives you a power for the game. So it's how many of those you've turned over times the amount of golems you've got out into play. Lastly, you've got a gold area, and you're going to...
I can't wait for you to explain this.
This is... I left it for last for a reason, Ronan.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, mate, there's some gold stuff. You flip it, it does stuff.
There you go. It's supposed to be artifacts. You pay a certain amount of gold onto an artifact to get a reward, but then you can power up the artifact. It's all very confusing, and as I said, we will be touching on that. There are some other little bits. There's an end of game bonus that's linked to the colour of the marble. If you get the right combination of 2 marbles on your board, then you get to do a bonus action, and that's as good as I can get it, Ronan. I'm sorry. That was a very cluttered and jumbled assessment, but it's a very hard game to grok, especially on your first go.
It's so extra. There's so many endless little things that are so hard to remember because they're there. And the theme does not assist with at least 50% of the mechanisms, because the mech is just a jumble. They've been thrown together and stuck together with some flour and water, and whether they hold together for you, they certainly started crumbling apart for me.
It's the decisions that which path do you go down? That's the bit that really hamstrung me. I don't know what's the most powerful way to go. I don't know what road to go down. Do I do a little bit of everything? Do I do a little bit of this or a little bit of that? That was the main thing for me. Now, I think you brought up while we were playing this that you felt that there was so much admin going around that you were just forgetting to do things. And I didn't really get... We had a discussion at the time. I don't get that. I think the process of each move is quite straightforward. It's just what you're going to get out of it at the end of the game that isn't straightforward.
My problem with it, and my problem with remembering how it all worked, was I think because the decisions I'm making in Golem are decisions on the process that I'm going through, not the result that I want. So I'm not making a decision where I want to go. I'm not even making a decision about how I want to go there. I'm making a decision about what I'm going to do to get the route to go where I know I want to go. And I know I can get there. It's just that I've got to jump over 10 mini hurdles every time I want to walk one step. And instead of taking strides and getting to where I want to be and moving on and progressing, I'm taking pigeon steps. And it's all because the mechanisms do not blend together in any way. That marble thing has got no reason to be the way it is. It's not linked in at all. Now, I know you can say that in Grand Austria Hotel. The marble thing is not linked in. But it's not a soup of 30 mechanisms in Grand Austria Hotel. It's a soup of half a dozen or so. In Golem, it's just a flood of this works differently to this, works differently to that, watch that for this, watch this for that. the major sort of thing that I really hung up on was that decision of choosing marbles. So you choose a colour of marbles because you want to move your student, because your student has to stay ahead of your golems, otherwise you have to kill your golems, which isn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on how you do it. Okay. Oh, by the way, also, there's a blend of them that if you happen to choose 2, you're going to get an extra thing at the end. Now, the whole game is about triggering extra things. So getting extra things above doing your basic decisions is how you're going to win the game. But that is so annoying to just, I've got to take a yellow and a red or I don't get that. Why?
Everything you've just said is why I love the game. So I think we're coming at this from completely different standpoints. I love the fact that you've got to think ahead and you've got to think, right, okay, that's going to affect my end of game bonus, but it's also going to affect the student. And what do I really want to go for in this round? So do I take the black marble that allows me to move 2 students? Do I take the white marble that's a wild card in terms of that end of game bonus? Every decision I feel is meaty for me, and I love it. And I love trying to put it all together in my head. Yeah, it can be a challenge, and yeah, it can be a proper brain burner. But I love the challenge of it.
Altogether, I can understand them being meaty, but they are a variety of microtransactions. And to me, it's just a constant small decision, small decision, small decision, small decision. And I understand that you like it, and I understand that some people like it. It's a variety of Euro that Rachel enjoys very much. So I try and be sort of more objective when I'm giving it an actual score and reviewing it, because subjectively, these microtransaction games are just not games that I enjoy. I don't have enough freedom to think and try different things. We're all going down the same path. We're all heading to the same place. We're all going to flip most of our upgrades. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's thinking about how we're going to get there. But I know we're going to get there.
Yeah.
So therefore, the journey isn't interesting to me.
As we discussed as well, Natalie, again, dislikes it. So I know that this is probably a Marmite game. I think we played with Matthew and he was, I'm not sure about that at all. So I know it's not for everybody, but I think myself and Rachel, we do tend to like those types of, not mathematical puzzles, but those little things where your little increments, right? You do that to do that, and I do that to do that, and I can think three or 4 steps ahead. You don't feel like maybe you're doing anything massively important in each of your moves, but I suppose the end is greater than the sum of the parts sort of thing.
I'm going to say a couple of things that aren't necessarily, linked to that, because we're just coming at it 2 different ways. Yeah. There's no point endlessly sort of batting that ball backwards and forwards. It's very solitaire.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's
Wow, okay.
No. I was thinking about that one. Yeah,
I hit a different ball into the core. I was hoping it would come back that time.
No, it is, and I was just trying to think if there is any real interaction, and I don't really think that there is. You're not really taking anything from anybody. Your golems don't interact with anybody else's golems on the board, so I think it probably is massively solitaire. Yeah, you're right. But I like it for that. I suppose me and Rachel are the turtlers when it comes to like war games. We're the ones that turtle in the corner and like to do our own thing and not be messed with. So I think that probably feeds into it as well.
Agreed. I'm going to throw one more thing at you. I didn't like the graphic design. The way it was all made together didn't help the flow of my eyes. Also leading into the fact that the red area of the city is green, that a lot of the colours are very similar to each other, that the iconography isn't that intuitive in places, that certain symbols mean something but they look like they can mean something else. And on top of that, the rulebook wasn't fantastic. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't pleasing. It wasn't a pleasing physical game for me to play.
I think it was pleasing to my eye as a piece of art. I agree that it took me a while to work out that was the actual red track, and I was wondering where the green track was. And certainly your player board, the yellow section and the gold and artifact section of your player board was just a mess. And a little touch on the rule book. I'm not going as easy as you are even, and you didn't like it. I thought it was an appalling rule book. When we had that one section where I had to tell you what a token on your board did, because you had no idea, and we looked for it for about 10 minutes each of us, and we could not find it mentioned in the rule book. So the rule book was not great. I learned this from watching videos online.
Oh, there's a you watching videos online joke there. I'm just going to sum up.
Go for it.
I don't know how comparatively positive I've sounded there between Brian Boru and Golem. Brian Boru I started, was interested, has faded. Golem is a game that it's not a bad game. It does what it does, I think, well, but because I'm not a fan of that type of game, I could definitely say that. And if you said to me, would you want a game of Golem? I'd be like, yeah. But I know that I would find it slightly tedious. If you said to me, do you want a game of Brian Boru? I'd be like, yeah. But I'd find it slightly unsatisfying. And I was kind of batting backwards and forth. So I decided on a score of 58 for Brian Boru. And I'm like, actually, they occupy quite similar spaces in my mind of potential that doesn't realise for me. But actually, Golem ends up with a 60 on the fact that, I mean, it's a game that works and you're chaining and there's things to do and your brain's working. So it does what it sets out to do. So it's a 60. I don't hate it.
Well, I'm happy with that. I'll take that, 60. So for me, I really like Golem. I think I've made that clear. Lots of choices, lots of little chains. Can be overwhelming, can be difficult to learn, but I think once you get there, it feels crunchy and it feels rewarding. And I absolutely love these types of games. So for me, it's an 80.
Whoa, I am surprised it's that high. I would also challenge you whether that be high in a year's time. It's one of the standard things I do to you. Because our repeated plays, I feel like you're going to be knocking on the same door. Right. I'm going to bring us forward with a game called Framework for 1 to 4 players, 30 minutes long, from Uwe Rosenberg and Pegasus Spieler. In Framework, you lay out a number of tiles equal to the number of players plus 1, depending on how many players are playing, obviously. On those frameworks, there's going to be frames between 1 to 3, or possibly none, because it'll only have goals on there. Or maybe it will have a mixture of both. And the frames and the goals are both in these different colours that relate to, especially like brick frames and wood frames and green material frames, golden frames, whatever, silver frames. So there's these colours of frames and these goals that say, I want this tile with a goal on to be linked to that number of that particular type of frame. Or maybe 2 types of frames can be used, or maybe it's one or the other type of frame. And you draft in from them. The first player takes the first tile, then the other players take one each, and then the first player gets the last tile left, hence n+1 tiles, and then the first player moves on to the next player and they draw again and you take them in. And as soon as you have got a goal which says, for example, 6 gold frames, if you can chain and link 6 gold frames in an unbroken link back to that goal, you put one of your 22 dobbers on it. The first person to get rid of their 22 dobbers, or fewer if you're playing with a quick version, is going to be the winner. Sean, it's an Uwe Rosenberg puzzle tile laying game that is clearly got some linked patchwork in it, which is why I bought it. When I took us in here to review it, I knew it was going to be a quick review, but lo and behold, I looked, Framework, a re-implementation of Nova Luna.
Yes.
Which is a re-implementation, wait for it, of sorts of habitats. And I'm like, what's going on here? I got into a bit of a rabbit hole. Have you seen why they've changed the name to Framework and Pegasus Speed have published it?
No, I haven't. I knew about the Nova Luna bit. I was going to ask you, have you ever played Nova Luna? But other than that, I don't know.
I bought Nova Luna. It's downstairs in Shrink. Apparently, I now have 2 copies of the same game with 2 different names.
Well done.
Because Framework was an impulse one. It was like a Uwe Rosenberg tile puzzle. Great, I'll get it. But I think, now no one's said this, so don't sue me. I think it's an opinion. This is an opinion piece. Corne van Moorsel is the original designer of Habitats. Nova Luna was a co-design between himself and Uwe Rosenberg, and Corne van Moorsel has been and continues to put anti-masking and some slightly controversial opinions about the pandemic out there. And I've got an inkling here. My opinion is they just redone it with Uwe's name on so they can kick his name off it and continue to sort of like use the line. Because Nova Luna was selling, so why would you re-implement it? I don't understand. It's a popular game. Now I kind of understand why they did it and renamed it.
Well done, Pegasus Spiel, I suppose.
You just don't want to comment on that, do you?
Yeah, but I don't know.
You're trying to leave that alone.
Yeah, but I suppose... Yeah, each to their own, but I can see the business reason behind doing something like that for sure.
Okay. Framework itself, Sean. Anything you ask me about, or should I just kick into this?
I think generally you should just
throw some frames around.
Generally, you should just kick into it, mate. But I have to say that box cover might be the most boring thing I've ever seen, and that's why I had no idea what you were talking about, because I must have literally passed out when I saw the box.
No, I can understand that. Yeah, I fell asleep 3 times just trying to reach for it. From the game, she was like, "Oh god, it's got an effect." You know why I got it? Because we love patchwork, and I was like, "Oh, up to 4 players, this could be fun." Let's go with it's got incredibly little downtime and plays very, very quickly. You're looking at the tiles. You're going, oh, I'd like that one or that one. Someone takes one of them and you're going, oh, I want that one, I want that one. Don't take it. They didn't take it. Yeah, I got it. And it's quite fun. And then more tiles are coming out. And it has that constant hit of here's new tiles, here's make the puzzle. Here's a new tile, make a puzzle. That works.
So, would you say, we say it all the time, would you say that this is a down the pub game? Does it take up too much space for that, or is it something you could do there?
You do need a bit of space to play it because you are building out not as much as you think, though. So, yeah, a decent table down the pub. You'd want some decent lighting because some of the frames are quite similar to each other. What I will say, though, with regards to buying it for more than 2 players in patchwork is that more players doesn't really slow it down very much. And in fact, you're more efficient because with more players, you have more choice on more of your turns. When there's only 2 of you, there's only 3 tiles. So I get a choice. You get a choice of 2, then I get the last one. And you're much more fighting what the game gives you. Rather when you play with 4, you can be more, I don't know, you can feel more powerful, I guess. That's not a great, you don't feel very powerful in Framework. Carry on.
How long does it actually take? What would you say you've got it down to?
Oh, 2-player game, 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, so
absolutely smashes through.
So you could crack this out like 3 or 4 of them, maybe.
For sure, yeah. Now, the issue with cracking out 3 or 4 of them with a game like this that is so quick is it going to have any longevity? Because it doesn't change up. And that was my concern. From the first play, I went, wow, that was a fun puzzle. We played it again straight away. The second time we played it again straight away. We carried on playing it. And longevity was what I was worried about. I'll say that several plays in, I'm still enjoying it. The only concern that's come out of it is that when you do have more players, turn order can be decisive. Because as soon as you get that marker down, you've won. So it can just be decided the fact that that person went before you in the last round.
Yeah, but with a 10-15 minute game, that's not a deal breaker, though.
Probably 30 minutes with 4 players. Okay. I said it doesn't increase the time. It increases it a little bit. Okay, it's Framework. You throw it down. You think. As you play it a bit more, you might start thinking about hate drafting for your opponent, but not really, because you're just desperate for what you want. And you soon discover that every single tile, as well as being a thing that is creative, is also a blocker. And you cannot afford to take bad tiles. And you also cannot afford to put tiles in a bad position. Because suddenly you're like, I have no longer got access to my 6 greens that I've created that I was able to throw goals next to. I've blocked it off and I'm an idiot and that's put me behind. And it does shift around and you are constantly fighting between getting frames together and getting goals near them and blocking getting goals near them. So after several plays, I'm enjoying Framework a lot. I don't know how close it is to Nova Luna, but I'll let you know shortly. And I've given it a 78.
See, I knew you were around the 80 mark because I saw your score when I was looking for comments on this.
That's cheating. So there you go.
Okay, lovely. Now I'm going to move on to a slightly deeper, thinkier game, and it's Stroganov from Game Brewer, designed by Andreas Stedding. He did Hansa Teutonica and Gugon. And it's all about Russia expanding, not the most popular topic in the world at the moment, so bad timing there. But this is in the 16th century, and they're expanding into Siberia. And what do? We are spending 4 years, and they are split into seasons, with winter being like a small scoring and a reset. You have 2 to 3 actions, because you can pay for a third action, where you're going to be doing various things, including gathering furs. So gathering furs is really the meat of this game. It's the meat on the bones of this game, because you're going to be handing in furs to do various things. You are gathering horses, and the horses are going to improve your movement. Why do I mention movement? Because you're going to be moving physically eastwards, and the further eastwards you go, the more things that you unlock, the more furs that you can trap, the more bonuses that you can unlock for yourself. And generally, it's considered a good thing to do to be the furthest east. It'll get you small little boons as the game goes on. Another resource in this game is gold, and gold is going to make fur more flexible and allow you to do some other small items. Another thing that you can do in this is gather songs about your heroic deeds as you forge eastwards into the inhospitable lands of Siberia, and people will sing songs about you, and at the end of the round, if you've got the most songs about you, then you get a reward. There is also a market that you can go to, and that is to swap and buy furs. All boils down to how many furs that you've got. There are cards that you can get that are scoring cards for the end of the game. You can collect those. You start off with one, you can collect them as you go forward. There are yurts, which are little collections of tents that you can take off the board and get a bonus from those, and they don't replenish until the winter. There are towns that you can visit, and they're going to give you a bonus, but they stay on the board, and you can actually claim the landscape tiles that you're actually taking the furs from by paying in furs and emptying them of furs, etc., and they're going to give you a bonus at the time and a collection bonus at the end of the game. That's pretty much it, Ronan. Have you got any thoughts? Have you heard anything about Stroganov?
Andreas Stilling.
Yes.
Hansa Teutonica, Stauffer Dynasty,
yeah,
Nuremberg, all medium weight Euros that I've tried. I went, that's a good game, but damn, it was dry.
You didn't like Gugong, though. That was him as well.
Oh, man, take the words out.
There you go.
Gugong's just a nah.
I like Gugong, but nobody else did.
Nah, shocking. So, they're games that I admire, but I don't buy an Andreas Stilling game or out of the blocks. Are you going to attempt to persuade me otherwise?
I'm going to attempt to, because in this game, to start off, one of the things that we noticed was that there are lots of very different paths to victory. Now, the flip side of that is that it does feel quite balanced. In all of my games of this, there's not been a lot in the score. In fact, the first score went down literally to the tiebreaker, who was further east. And it's not been too different since then. But I can live with that because I do like the different scoring. So you can really concentrate on furs and really hoover up all those landscape tiles by paying in the furs. You can forge east and get all the rewards as you forge east. You can pick up the end of game scoring tiles. You can concentrate on songs and trying to get your legend out into the Russian world. All of those are they're all viable ways to go.
Okay, but if they're too balanced, or are you having to make clever decisions in order to forge down those paths, or are they just things that you do and everything's going to score you points?
I think you have to decide where you're going. So just for an example, in my first game, I decided I was going to be all about the songs and all about the end of game scoring. And Nat decided that she was going to go for the furs and try and get those landscape tiles because they do score heavily in the game and they score a set collection bonus at the end. And what she did very cleverly was she let me forge east and take the furs off the lands, which makes them easier to then take yourself. Because if there's any furs on there, you have to pay an extra fur for every fur still remaining, or for every animal still remaining on the board. So she was letting me empty them, which was great for me because it helped me do what I wanted to do. But then she was just hoovering them up one by one. And that was the one where she ended up by winning on the tiebreak, which happened to be moving further east on the last round because I cottoned on to what she was doing. And I said, well, I'm not going east. And that's what cost me the game.
Probably should have read that rule.
Should have read that way.
Okay. When you're doing this, when you've chosen your path and you start doing what you're doing, one of the comments that came up a couple of times was people weren't feeling like they were building an engine or they were progressing, that they were able to set things up and build on them round after round. It felt like you were restarting. Any thoughts on that?
That's exactly what you're doing. In the winter, as I said, it's the sort of clean up and the small scoring. You effectively go back to your start point. So you're back at the beginning. And because the furs don't replenish, in that sense, I found it very thematic because obviously you're hoovering up and you're killing all the animals. Not nice, I know. And to get the furs. and then you're having to forge even more eastwards to find the animals, because obviously they're disappearing into the east, and you're having to forge onwards and onwards. And the only time you would get new furs into the game is if you claim those landscape tiles, and then they all slide down, and one is added right in the far one with some new furs on it. So, yes, I get that if you want an engine building game where you're getting stronger and stronger, this is not the game for you, because you're literally having to start again every round.
I don't know. I'm going to talk to you about some physical things, by the way.
Yes.
3 physical points to make, and then I'm almost a metaphysical.
Ooh, intriguing.
Component issues, widely reported component issues. Did you come across? They are widely reported, so I don't want you to deny them. But apparently, issues with the board, issues with icons not being clear, cards being thin, and some weird thing about people's components hadn't dried properly and they were moldy or smelly or something. Something about not drying out. I don't know. But in terms of the card and board quality, iconography, people weren't very happy with the components.
Card quality, absolutely agree. It's very poor. And I got the deluxe version of the game, so I paid a lot of money to get quite poor quality. And Game Brew have actually addressed it to a degree. You have to join their next Kickstarter, and they will send you if you pay the postage. So I don't know if you've done a great job there, Game Brewer. But in terms of everything else, I thought the tiles were fine. I thought the components were all fine. But then again, as I just stated, I did get the deluxe version, so maybe there's a slightly better component, and I didn't have any problems with mold or anything like that.
People are definitely moaning about playing deluxe and not getting deluxe.
Oh, really? Okay.
The rule book, varying reports.
You're talking to the wrong person, because I learn most of my games from videos. I either go, obviously Rodney does them, but there's a guy called Branislav Belech who does Nithrania, and he does all these types of games, and I think he's brilliant. So just a little shout out for him. I think the rulebook was okay. I did go through it after I'd watched the video, and I didn't have any issues, but I can't swear to that.
Great. The actions, the order of actions, and the order of the turn is on the board itself. Is that correct? So the board actually leads you through the turn.
It is, but there is a very unintuitive bit to this, because it took me ages to explain it to Nat. And what it is you're going to have, as I said, 2 or 3 turns. So you get a basic action, and you can use the basic actions. Also, with your basic actions, you can spend the most coveted fur, which is different every game, to get a different set of basic actions, and you can do 2 of those basic actions as opposed to 1. Then you can move on, and you can do another basic action.
I'm losing the will to live.
I know.
To summarise this. Just summarise.
This is what I'm saying.
Quick, in a nutshell.
Which is what Branislav Belech has called it. His games in a nutshell. Anyway, yeah, you can then go on and you can do a basic action, another basic action, or an advanced action. And then if you want,
order the word action. Come on, wrap it up. Okay. What's going on?
It's very hard to work out. Like, okay, do a basic action here, but there's another bit of a basic, and then I can do another basic, but I can do an advanced, and then if I play this, I can do another advanced, and it can be very confusing. And the iconography on the board doesn't help you with that at all.
It's not sounding deluxe. Okay, my metaphysical comment. I need you to possibly, if you can, shine a light for me, because I've come across something and I don't quite know what the person meant. But their comment, without a score on Stroganov, is bounty, struggle, regret.
There's bounties to be had. It's a struggle to get it. And I suppose you could regret if you don't forge out east enough on your last turn. There you go.
I feel like they're looking at the bodies of all those animals and they're like, I have to kill you to feed my family. You've given me so much money, but look, you poor little souls.
Ronan, I did have to kill bears.
Okay, well, you're done with me. Give me your score and move on. I'll find a new co-host.
Okay, so Stroganov, I really liked it. I think the movement aspect really set it apart, and it felt thematic, forging east. I thought the iconography was good, and I loved the different paths to victory, as I've already said. I've only played this game 2 players. Now, and there's plenty of furs really if you're able to just move a bit further east. I think at 3 players it could be really hampered, because at 4 players they add another fur, but at 3 players they don't. So I think at 3 players that battle for furs could make it really interesting, or could break the game slightly. But I'm going to review it because, as I've seen it, and I'm going to review it as a 2-player game, and I'm going to give it a score of 75.
You're in happy land so far.
I am.
And 80 and a 75. 2 very good games.
Yes, indeed.
Right. Let's smash through. I'm going for an expansion. It's an expansion for Isle of Cats. It's called Kittens and Beasts, Frank West City Games. You know I love Isle of Cats. I'm going to go through this expansion quickly, lest you want to hear about it. What do you get in there? You get kittens. Kittens are available every single round. There are 4 of them. They're smaller tiles. They are only available to the person who is quickest, so has got the most boots in their collections and goes first in turn order. If they wish to, they can pay fish for kittens. You can get up to 2 of them for 5 fish, and then you can put them on your board, and they're off colour, and they count as separate members of the families. They help you boost up the number of cats in your families and open up that scoring, as well as giving a reward for having most boots. Second aspect to this expansion is beasts. Beasts are only available in the first round. They're on the right hand side of the draft. They cost 5 fish each, and they're gone then after that. And what they do is they are quite large, so they cover quite a bit of your board, which obviously can be handy, because the more of your board you have covered, the more points you score, and the less likely you are to get negative points. But also, they wish to be linked to certain colour families of cats. And if you can link them to certain colour family of cats in certain squares, they've got little icons on them, you're going to score bonus points for doing that. So they give you a shape and a direction in which you wish to build out your cats. Third thing that Kittens and Beasts give you is events. And events come out and they give you 2 ways to score and 3 things that are going to happen, 3 ways to adapt the rules during the game. And you can see what's coming up. You lay all 5 out immediately, so you can see what they're going to do for the game. And they just give you a certain, they don't change the rules, they just give you something extra to think about. Sean, Frank West is incredibly clever designer in how he works his games and works his systems, and he's come up with 3 ways here. And expansions can be all sorts of different things, but this is one of a very clever few expansions I've found that add depth to a game while using exactly the same mechanisms and not adding any time.
Firstly, I'm going to have to contact Frank West and tell him that to be very careful who he's at the same con as you, because this is like the 3rd or 4th time you've said he's a really clever guy. I think he's in line for a Ronan cuddle, and I think I need to tell him.
I'm trying to control myself.
Secondly, you are absolutely right. I've played 2 of them. I've played the Beasts and the Kittens with yourself and Rachel, and they're just enough to immediately grok how they work and how that you're going to get the most out of them, but not overwhelm the game or not change the game in massive amounts. And I think they're very, very clever, out of the box, in a bag, wherever way you want to store them. You can just write that's added now. And everyone's going to go, oh, cool. Yeah, we know how to do that, because it's very intuitive. The Kittens make one of the areas that I thought was slightly off about Isle of Cats. I love it. It's a great game. I always felt going first, was it that important? Yeah, if there was one colour of something, but often there really wasn't. There was always a nice selection. So now going first is quite important, and you can really boost your scoring with additional cats with those kittens. The monsters, love the way that it just affects the first round, but it sets up another way that you're going to go in that game. For Rachel, really loved to get in the beasts, sorry, not monsters. And she really played her game to maximise those beasts as good as she could, and she was very successful at it. So I think, yeah, they're both very clever, very simple, brilliant additions to a brilliant game.
Correct. And something you mentioned there that I didn't was that you can add them or take them out without messing around. You don't mess around with a deck of cards. You're not searching through going, which of these tiles are part of this and are not. They are kept separate in a bag. They are placed separately and taken out separately. So you can choose when to use them, when not to use them, which is just sort of a functionality thing that, again, it's been thought about. The whole user experience has been thought about. It's all I have to say about Isle of Cats, Kittens and Beasts is the whole experience has been thought about, and it refreshes a fantastic game, and it's delightful.
Delightful.
I'm not going to rate it because it is Isle of Cats. It doesn't change it enough to rate it.
No, I was thinking that. I was about to say, it would get the same score as Isle of Cats because
it's the same game, but slightly, jiggy-jiggered and hoobity-hoobided.
Hoobity-hoobided. There we go.
Yeah, exactly that. Stardew Valley, Sean.
Stardew Valley from Concerned Ape, designed by Eric Baroni and Cole Medeiros. It's based on the video game Stardew Valley. And effectively what you're going to do in the game is you are going to take on Grandpa's farm. Unfortunately, Grandpa's passed away. He's left you his farm in Stardew Valley, and he left you a group of goals to achieve to save Stardew Valley from the evil Joja Mart Corporation, who are moving in and trying to hoover up all the green land and turn it into horrible factories and what have you. And the twist is, we used to work for Jojo Mart. There you go. So what are you going to do in the game to try and do this? So you're moving around. Effectively, you're going to different locations, and you're just doing little mini games or little mini tasks to try and make friends. You're going to go and fish. You're going to go and mine to get lower down the mine and open geodes and things like that. On your way around the town, you can forage for goods that are going to help you to do things. And you're also going to farm, and ultimately you're going to try and build buildings that are going to give you small boons and small ways of adding to everything. And it's a very loosey-goosey character direction that you start with. You start as maybe the forager, and you can, with a certain tool that you start with, and you're going to adapt that tool, you're going to improve that tool, and it's going to make you better at whatever you decide you want to do in the game. That's kind of it. There's not a lot going on. If you do the 4 goals, or 3 of the 4 goals, or whatever the player count, it changes with player count, then you win the game on the easy game. There's also a set of sub-tasks for the medium and hard game that you need to do a certain amount of those as well to win the game. And it's all about gathering hearts, gathering money, and doing whatever the tasks say. Yeah, it feels... what I'd imagine Stardew Valley feels like if you'd ever play it. It's got that Animal Crossing feel to it, Ronan.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Sean, if you ever played Stardew Valley. You never mentioned it. I thought you hadn't, but I think that's quite an important factor in what people think about this game, because it's quite highly rated on BGG. And I went in there and I read, as we do, the comments and looked at the ratings. There's an awful lot of 8, 9 and 10 ratings there that say, oh, I wish the rules were different. I wish the goals worked differently. I wish it was different this way and that way. But I love the video game. Have a 9. I
get that impression. I get that it is actually quite faithful to the video game from what I've read and the reviews that I've seen on before actually.
I think people just love the video game so much. They're just happy it exists.
Yeah, maybe. James has actually downloaded it on the Xbox after we played this, so he's gone the other way.
Well, it's done the job that way round. Component quality. This has been published by a video game publisher, and some concerns raised. Any thoughts on component quality?
They're shocking. A lot of the components are really flimsy and thin. The cutting of the components. So you've got buildings and they're little squares, and half of them are, the wording as to how you actually get the building is half cut off. And the coins are, some of them are half coins, some of them are just the corners cut off here. So effectively, Ron, it's not the best quality, but they have actually some nice touches in there, in that they have this tray that holds all of the stuff that you can farm, all of the things the animal produce, and some of the stuff that you can mine. And it holds.
Yeah, you're not going to persuade me that a tray is a decent component.
But it's thoughtful. Time. It's thoughtful because it stores everything in the box like that. So you just take the tray out and you're good to go. But yeah,
they're so little difference to me.
Yeah, but even the people in there, they're not people. They're little. Honestly, they're like Cluedo dobbers. They're literally like a bishop in chess, like one of those things, but a tiny version.
Okay. Luck versus length.
Right, so we've very quickly realised that to play the full game is way too long for what it is. It's just doing the same things over and over and over and over again. When they start off fun and you're having a nice time, they do become, not again, I have to go to the mine again. I have to go fishing again. So we definitely will be playing the shorter game in future. James would have us play an even longer one if he could get us to do it, but no, we're playing the shorter one in future.
2 issues with the goals came up again and again. Firstly, not enough goals, therefore not enough variety in what you do in the game, but also the goals being wildly varied in difficulty, and some being very hard and just some being incredibly easy.
Yeah, I've got that written down as well. So goals are just not balanced at all. You've got, exactly what you said. I'm not even going to bother.
Very good. That's all I had for Stardew Valley. I took me 5 minutes to look at it to go, not for me. Is it for you?
Not for me, but it is for my family. It's very immersive, very thematic, and everything in it is it's all about happy, and it's all about spreading love, and it's all about doing nice things, and you do have little moments in the game where you find a legendary fish, or you've managed to go down a level on the thing, and you fulfill a goal, and you fulfill it for everybody, and everyone goes, well done, hey. But as a gamer, it's not for me. It's just too repetitive, too long for what it is, and I'm not a fan of the original source material. So for me, Stardew Valley is a 45.
I like it. Right. My last game of this episode is a little card game called Festival of 1,000 Cats for 3 to 4 players. Takes 30 minutes to play. Designed by Fukutaru from the now defunct Tasty Minstrel Games. I heard about it on one of our fellow board game podcasts. I forgot to write down which one it was. I think it's So Wrong About Games, but it could have been a different one. So Very Wrong About Games? Those. Anyway, what it is there are 4 seasons. The cards. It's a card game. They come in 4 seasons. They're numbered 1 to 13, which each season have its own mix of those numbers. And these contain, as well as being in a season and a number, they have icons of fish or milk bottles or birds on them. No matter how many people you're playing with, there are 2 cards in the middle. And you cannot play the same season as either of the cards in the middle. And you're going to choose a card from your hand and you put it face down. Everyone is. If you're playing with 3 players, a dummy player does this randomly. In fact, no, you see the dummy player's card when you're playing 3 players. That's me remembering. And then you get to choose. With 4 players, it's actually more random than 3, which is a bit weird. But anyway, and then you flip it over. Whoever's played the lowest number takes the lowest card from the middle and scores it. Whoever's played the highest number takes the highest card from the middle and scores it. And then the 2 middle cards just score themselves, because there's only 2 cards. And then the highest and lowest that are played this turn become the cards you're playing for next turn. And you carry on going through until you've played all your cards, or until someone has collected 3 milk. 3 milk, you say, Sean? I do say 3 milk, because when you collect the cards, if you take back a card, you score a card with a milk token on it, you take a milk. They're good if you have 1, they're good if you have 2, and they're bad if you had 3, because you don't score any points for your milk, and you half your points for fish. Points for fish, I hear you say, Sean. Yes, because you score points for your fish and they're all good. You don't score points for birds, they're bad. But the birds, if they're played at the same time as either of the 2 extreme cards, which is a 0 and the 13, which are guaranteed to win the hand, will swap with them. So you're trying to time whether someone's about to use one of the special cards when you play a bird. Otherwise, you get the bird back, and it's going to cause you negative points.
Bad bird.
On top of that, dirty bird. On top of that, in the advanced game, you get to choose a scoring card, which is going to make one of the 4 seasons a negative points for you, and one of the 4 seasons double points for you. That's cool. I've got a horrible feeling there's supposed to be 4 sets in there, because they're numbered and they're also coloured, but I've only got 3 sets of them. So I don't know what happened there. But I think you're supposed to have a set each that you choose from, as opposed to the random ones we have to play with. Now, why would I have concerns about whether I've got the right cards or not? Well, Tasty Minstrel have been known to be very sloppy. And I'm going to start off something, Sean, that everyone needs to be aware of if you do play or buy Festival of 1,000 Cats. And that is that the rulebook is entirely, completely, fundamentally, incredibly wrong about probably the fundamental rule of the game. And if you play it, as we did, according to the rulebook, this game is like a 2 out of 10. Because it's completely and utterly random, and it tells you that when you play a card, the effect on it is what triggers, as opposed to when you win a card, meaning that whatever card you get dealt at the beginning of a round is what's going to happen to you, and you have no agency. Now, anyone can make a mistake in a rulebook. It's the response from Tasty Minstrel that will really, it will get your goat, Sean.
Go on.
people pointed out this is a mistranslation from the Japanese. And the fact is, when you take a card, and that makes a lot more sense, and that actually gives you agency. And their official response was, play either way. It doesn't really make any difference.
Good old tasty minstrel. Why did they go out of business?
You know, and I feel bad for it. I read that, I played it the proper way, and I almost felt like, gee, you kind of deserved it, lads. You kind of, and I felt bad for feeling it. But no, that is not the response. We're really sorry. The designer, like, you made him look like a mug. Like, this is not the game he designed. And it's an incredibly worse game than the game he designed. And you're just like, huh, never mind. Hey, we just completely ruined the game for most people who are going to play it, who aren't going to bother to go on BGG and dig into a thread. Because it's not there anywhere. It doesn't say rules error, version 2 of the rules, everyone be aware. It's like you've got to dig in and you can find it in a thread that someone said, is this right? And other people have gone, no, it's not.
No, that's not good, is it? So that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the the comments that I saw were like, no, totally arbitrary, no control, little staying power. So I was probably reading comments for a completely different game.
Exactly. They've utterly hamstrung this game. And I only bought it because it got positive reviews from their podcast, and I was like, there's something to it, and I saw it in a big store, and I went, I'll grab that and have a look at it. And like I say, after that first game, I was just baffled. I was like, how are they praising this? This is rubbish. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't fathom it, which is why I bothered to went on BGG, because, you know, whether I agree with them or not in all their reviews, they make sense, and I go, okay, that makes sense, blah, blah, blah. They can't have just like, there's no way, come on. And that's the only reason I found out the rules. Okay, in terms of the game itself, firstly, and I will very ever rarely say this, the artwork is ridiculously cute. Ridiculously. His little Pudger Woodger cat. I don't even like cats that much. Pudgy cats in clothes doing things, looking Pudgy Woodgy.
You say that. He says this. I hate cats. Then when he goes home to his cats, oh, hello.
They're not my cats, they're Rachel's.
Yeah. Just keep telling yourself that.
They're no dogs. And they're not bears, bear killer. The art, I think, creates an expectation, which should create an expectation of a funny game in which you're kind of throwing down and you are thinking, I want that one, I don't want that one, and I might get in, I might not. And that's what you have. It's one of those games in which you are making a decision, but there is some luck with it as well. It kind of reminds me a bit of Six Nimmt, but with a little bit more to it. And I wonder how badly you want that. And within itself for that, with the cute gameplay and the quick game time, the unfortunate thing is that the actual explanation for it and the explanation of scoring for some reason appears to be really difficult for people to grok, because every group I've taught hasn't quite got it, and we've had to play a bit and they've gone, I get what's going on. Now either I can't teach this game, which is a possibility, or it's slightly too convoluted for the quick throwdown nature of it. Yeah,
which obviously that is going to pose a problem, because these games are supposed to be exactly what you said, and I think if it does have, we've had this problem with other games where you've sort of taught me again, I've not really grokked it straight away, and it's put me off, like even looking into that game and playing it further. So were you able to get everyone to play it that sort of 2, 3, 4 times so that they felt that they understood it?
Half the time,
right,
and half the time I couldn't. So I couldn't tell you why. And in fact, in the same group, some people were like, "Oh yeah, I'll play it again. I want to try and get it." And other people are like, "I'm not playing that again. It's just not. I'm not getting it. And it's too." And the thing with it is, there's kind of a dislocation between. It's a bit thinky. You are thinking ahead. You are planning what's in your hand. You are thinking, I don't want to keep these cards, and I'm trying to time when I can play them to get rid of them. Because most you'll go half the cards probably you're going to have to take back on your scoring pile, and there's ones you just want to get rid of, especially when you start weighting the score in. So you're thinking a bit, but ultimately it's quite lucky what you do get, because you can't tell what everyone else has got. So there's a slight dislocation between input and output. And I think that's what sort of puts people a little bit off with it. At the end of the day, for Festival of 1,000 Cats, I actually prefer 3-player to 4-player, which is weird because it's got a dummy player 3-player, but the dummy player actually removes a bit of that randomness. You can think a bit more about it. And up and backwards and forwards. And if I'm reviewing the game as it is in the box, like I said, it's like a 20. The way it is, I enjoy it, but it's a little bit of a pain to teach, and it's not always a hit with everyone. I'm going to give it a 56, which I think is a bit mean, but I think I've been burned by poor first experience and having to teach it a load of times and it not going over that well, because I think there's fun to be had there, and in, I think, lighter game groups who are willing to spend like time with a 20-minute, 30-minute card game and play it again and again and again, I think there's a lot to get out of it. You can start second guessing each other. There's almost a little bit of love letter. Oh, you've done that, so I've got this, and you want that, so I want that. Almost like a little bit, but that's too high praise. Oh, Fest for the Thousand Cats. Oh, it's bothered. I'm going to be bothered. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to wake up tonight. Like, I should have given it 56. And I don't know whether it should be lower or higher, but there you go. Try it. I'm going to say try it. Try Fest for the Thousand Cats. Make your own mind up. It's weird.
Oh, lovely. Right. So, Ronan, what next?
What next, Sean?
What next, Ronan?
What next? What next?
What next?
Sean, what next?
Oh, Ronan, what next?
Yeah, Sean, what next? Like, we can't do this.
We could go on for ages. Okay, so what next is the name of the game. From Big Potato Games, designed by Ed Naujokas. And really simply, it's the lightest by far of my games. It's a pick your own or choose your own path adventure game with dexterity challenges thrown in. That's it. Essentially, it adds a physical element to your choices and an extra dimension as to what you go for when you make those choices. So some of the challenges that we faced when we played this game, I stood up, dropped a single card. James had to catch it in one hand. There's a little cardboard tile that you flick a little puck along, and you have to make the puck stop on a certain part of the tile, and you get a better result. There's loads of different things, and the scoring itself and how the timer of the game is you're building almost like a Jenga thing, but from scratch, but it's all jagged rock pieces, and they stand on their sides, and they're not that thick, and you have to build this up, and when that falls, you've lost the game. And if you manage to complete the game before that topples over, you've won the game. That's pretty much it, Ronan.
Big Potato look at gaming from a slant and angle that I would never look at gaming from. And they come up with ideas that sometimes I think, that's quite a funny idea. I'm not sure how it's going to play. And sometimes they put it off, and sometimes they don't. But I love that they're this creative with gaming, and they're always trying to create new, funny social experiences. So I'm a fan of the company without necessarily always loving their games. And this almost gimmick of what next is all going to come down to, obviously, the implementation of it. And there's two parts of that implementation. There's the two parts of the game. It's the stories, and then it's the dexterity. So I read in lots of comments that the story of the adventure itself was a bit weak.
It's not great. They tried to throw in a bit of humour in there, like there's killer koalas in one of them, and you kind of...
Well, they're just called drop bears. They have a name.
Drop bears in my bed. And they've kidnapped a professor, and that's... You've got to go and rescue her. And yeah, they're very basic storylines, but I think they're supposed to be... The choices are supposed to be quite obvious in that, this is going to be the better one. So if you want to go down the better path, then you're going to have to do something difficult to do that. And I think that's where it comes in. When you cross in a rickety bridge, you don't just, across the rickety bridge and I roll a die. You actually have to do something physical to get across that bridge in one piece, or without falling and having to go around a different route. So on a very basic level, I think it works. I think it makes for a really good party game.
The difficulty of the challenge is, does it make sense with the situation you've put yourself in story-wise, and are they consistent, or how was the actual physical activity of playing this game?
A little bit hit and miss in terms of making sense of what the challenges were. So I think the rickety bridge that I mentioned, that was a case of flicking the puck along, which didn't make that much sense, but certainly the catching something, there was something thrown out of a tree and we had to catch it, and that was the drop in the card element. and various other things that you have to do. Some of them make sense. Some of them go, yeah, I can see why we have to do that and why we have to. It's the same sort of thing that you would have to do, like catching something. It's just a bit of fun, and it's over so quickly. Like, you can play through a whole mission in half an hour, 40 minutes, and have a little bit of fun round the table. Definitely aimed at the family market for sure, but yeah, it's choose your own adventure with a physical side to it. So you'll know immediately if you're going to like it. And I just thought of myself, Nat, and James, and I just thought we'll like that, and we did. And it's flown under the radar massively. I hadn't even heard of it until I went to Aircon.
I hadn't heard of it either, and I love the idea. I hope it's implemented well. I'm hanging on your score.
My score is going to be 60. So it's a good game. Don't get me wrong, it's not burning any bridges, but it's.
Well, it hasn't offended anyone.
No, sorry.
Them later.
That's completely the wrong analogy. It's not tearing up any mountains or ripping down any whatever. You know what I mean?
It's not diverting any rivers.
That's the one. Whatever. But it is.
There's no canals that are going to loop the loop.
They might do, but it's.
Is it draining any lakes?
Any more?
Loads.
Reversing waterfalls.
I like that one. I'm writing that one down.
Write down. Yeah, I think it's a good, decent game, and it does exactly what it says on the tin.
What next?
Nothing, Ronan. Nothing. We are done.
Sean, thank you.
Thank you, Ronan, and thank you, everybody, for listening. And as ever, we are proud members of the Dice Tower Network. Go there and to the Dice Tower itself for gaming goodness galore. If you wish to contact us, our email address is thegamepitpodcast@gmail.com. We are, as ever, on our Board Game Geek Guild, where you can come and have a conversation with us there. If you wish to track us down on social media, we do have an Instagram page, we do have a Facebook page, but we are most present on our Twitter feed, which is @GamePitPodcast. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on The Game Pit. Music by Ian.
Choo-choo boy.
Reverse waterfall boy.